as we jump into week 3, should we just hop into these games? See what we talk about them?
Yeah,
let's jump into the Denver Tampa game. And let's talk about that. So we have a fun team in Tampa playing against a not so fun team, the Denver Broncos. Interestingly enough, I think for me, what I'm looking at is how Tampa attacks Denver, because they've given the least amount of fantasy points to wide receivers. And against running backs, they've been more okay. So I'm curious how that affects them with their super inept run game. But overall, kind of what are you looking at from the quarterbacks? We'll start from there. Between Mr. Baker Mayfield and our boy Bo Nix, how are they looking for you?
Yeah, it's super interesting because the Broncos, they played the Seahawks in week 1. Not sure, we saw what the Seahawks did in week 2. They kind of had their coming out party. Not sure if they needed a week to ramp up or what happened there in that game, but we do know that the Denver defense is pretty good against the pass. We know they have Patrick Surtain. We know their back end and their safeties have always been pretty good. So good that his name is failing me now, but they actually cut like their starting safety. Was it Simmons? From a year ago because they felt so strong about their back end, and so far that's holding up. So I really don't love Baker Mayfield in this matchup. That said, the rest of the Denver team is not that good. I mean, they were okay, kind of tracking Justin Fields down, but Baker's been so explosive. It's really hard to sit him at this time. I think you have to temper expectations, but I will fire up Baker this week, even if he's not going to ball out like he did in week 1.
Where do you have him ranked? Is it like QB 15 or so in that range?
That sounds about right. I may be slightly higher on him only because it's a weird week. I do have him above Geno Smith, who gets a nice Miami matchup. So I do have him QB 12 at the moment, but there's a group of guys there. Geno, Dak, Jaden Daniels, I have a bit lower this week. All of those guys I could see doing better than Baker. So I'd say anywhere from 12 to 15 makes a lot of sense.
And yeah, I think that's a pretty solid spot to have him. I think if you have him in one QB leagues, like you're okay with it. And on the flip side of Bo Nix, if you have any interest in starting Bo Nix this week, are you just leave him on the bench, even Superflex leagues?
No, there's never any interest in starting Bo Nix. There's never any conversation. I somehow felt concerned about it when I made the deal, but just before the season started, the Bo Nix hype was out of control. I sent him in a first for Dak Prescott on a whim. That trade was accepted. I was lucky because right now it feels bad to be holding the Bo Nix bag. So no, I can't start Bo Nix anywhere, no matter what.
Yeah, I'd say it's becoming crystal clear that Drew Brees was the cog behind that machine in New Orleans and not so much Sean Payton. I think that's a good time for us to transition to these running backs and talk about the motley crew of running backs they have in Denver and just how bad it's been for those guys, even though we were kind of excited for both Javonte and Jaleel. And on the flip side, Rachaad White's still getting the work. He's still being that volume like workhorse with Bucky kind of as a handcuff role. How are you treating the running backs in this game? Are you bullish on Rachaad against this Denver defense? Or are you a little bit worried?
No, I'm worried, and mostly because of whatever is happening with White and his injury situation. We know that he's a bit banged up. He's likely to play, I think, at this stage. So it's not really a concern of him missing the game. I don't think that he's going to be worked in much less than normal. So I'm not so concerned about Bucky taking touches because of injury. I'm just concerned of Bucky taking touches simply because Rachaad White is not good at the running back position. We know he's lived off of volume against the Denver front. That's just okay. I think he can get there, but it's going to depend on who Baker decides to throw the ball to, whether it's Mike Evans. We know it's going to be Chris Godwin or Rachaad White this week. So I don't love it. I mean, Javonte, like you said, he's fine. He's just not getting the volume we like to see, although it was there in the passing game for him last week. So it's a concern for these guys, but I think I would probably have White and Javonte kind of close to each other. I have to check my rankings. That is Zamir. So that he
Not
is
the
first.
one,
Yeah, I can't find Rachaad.
Which
means he's probably too high. Which means he's probably too high.
But,
he's actually he's below Zamir. So I have him 25. They're back to back. Rachaad 25 and Javonte 26 this week. I just don't like the matchups here.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I get it. I think the one thing with Rachaad White is he dealt with injury last week, so It's kind of a little bit of fool's gold with like how they played them. But he came back, played that game. It looks like he's going to be healthy. The one thing that I'm taking away from these running backs, and we can hit on this question here in a second, is I'm not playing Jaleel anywhere. Like, he got 0 targets in week 2, and his usage just plummeted. And overall, like, that backfield, which looked like it was going to be a gold mine for fantasy, is just non-existent. So I don't really know. You could do Javonte. I think you can, but overall, I'm not super into it. And this week, are you bullish enough on Carr to start him versus Philly, or are you still rolling with AR versus Chicago?
This is a really depressing question because I was so high on A-Rich this season. I have Derek Carr 10 and Anthony Richardson 11 this week. So if you're going by my rankings, I'm going with Derek Carr. The matchup is juicy. Philly has not fixed their back end, at least early in the season. So I got Carr barely above Richardson. We know he has a floor, but Carr probably the better ceiling this week.
Yeah, if you want to ride the lightning that is Derek Carr in that offense, like, you can go for it. I have Richardson 1 spot ahead of him. It's 9 and 10, but like, yeah, I'm there with you. I don't think there's a bad answer because just how valuable Richardson in the fantasy points he produces. Like, he could be bad and give you 25 points. Like, that's in his range of outcomes. There's no possible chance for Derek Carr in that scenario. Let's kind of flip to the wide receivers in this game. How are you treating the wide receivers? Courtland Sutton, I put out a tweet, is the wide receiver 6 in expected points. Clearly, like, well below that in points per game. Do you have Godwin as it's just a little bit multiplied by 10. Do you have Godwin as the highest guy, or is it Evans the highest guy for this week?
I must. I have Evans really high this week, though. He's 11. I have to look at Godwin. I haven't really parsed through these guys right now. Godwin sitting at 17 feels too low. We know Evans is likely going to see a lot more Surtain. We know Godwin is playing from the slot. Those guys need to be closer. I might move Evans down, actually. But it's really ugly because you got Tyreek Hill, you got Malik Neighbors in a really tough matchup. So I don't think he's going to see 18 targets this week, even though it'll be good. So yeah, it's just really muddy there in the wide receiver 2 range. But I think Evans and Godwin, once we get closer to Sunday, will be a lot closer together. You can play both these guys, though.
Yes, 100%. I think you should fire them both up. I think I have them flipped in rankings. I have Godwin at 10, Evans at like 16. Just based on your point of the matchup, and Godwin has the best role in fantasy through 2 weeks for like wide receivers. Like, it's a gold mine. So you should be confidently starting these 2 guys. Are you interested in playing any other wide receiver, including Courtland Sutton for the Broncos? Or are you just saying no?
No. It was Devon Vele in week 1, if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was Josh Reynolds in week 2. These guys are, Reynolds is a journeyman. Vele came out as a 26-year-old rookie. I mean, it's just pretty ridiculous who they're rolling out there. And they can't find space for Troy Franklin, which is a problem for the Denver Broncos and for Troy Franklin. So I don't know what the hell to do here. Yeah, Courtland Sutton should have more points, but he doesn't. We saw this last year. Courtland Sutton, to be viable in fantasy, needs to score a touchdown. So no, I don't want to play any of them.
And then let's talk about these tight ends. And I don't even really want to talk about Otten because he's just the routes run god and does nothing with them. He's completely unvaluable. I think you could talk yourself into Dulcich. Like, the role is there. It's man, you gotta trust Bo Nix. So if you're really willing to stream it, I think you can. But overall, like, I think you should be able to find a better tight end to stream somewhere this week, just because we'll see how it goes. But like, they have some good safeties in against them this week, so I'm curious to see how that matchup goes overall. But yeah, just a hard pass with that. It's rough.
The one thing I'll say about Tampa is they've had some injury to the linebacking core and to the secondary, so that's just something to keep in mind. Dulcich could have a better than average game, but an average game for Dulcich hasn't really been exciting. You're probably benching him.